Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reasonably Effective podcast. I am 10 Types, one of the hosts, as well as joined by Uncommon Fossil, and today we're going to be talking about some fun stuff. But how's your time been with Pokemon this past week?
Yeah, it's been a good week. Things have been good for me since I migrated over to Live, mainly because I don't have to switch between the two games, which was just kind of led to a lot of grinding without having all the cards. So I'm joining the cards in one place. I picked up the first EX card in Live, Mimikyu EX, tech that in Shadow Rider, which is okay. Doesn't necessarily make the deck better, but it's certainly fun to try out something like that. And how's your week been?
And it's been okay, but wait, have you ever attacked the Mimikyu in the deck?
Let me think.
It's
I'm
not
not
good.
sure. I've had them hit into my Mimikyu, which has actually been better than they're hitting into a Shadow Rider. So
Well, because
it
it's not
served
Shadow Rider, right?
right because well, Shadow Rider gives it three prizes, so I kind of
Well, yeah, but the V gives up two prizes,
correct.
and it
But I
has more
had
HP.
it does. Up against like some of the Lugia matchups or something where they get a lot of energy into play. Um, the Mimikyu EX could be a good attacker in that, right? So
Yeah,
there's times I've wanted to use it. Getting it set up is not always easy, but there's also times you attack with the Shadow Rider V also it's situationally. So I don't think it's a bad notion. Now I put an Eternatus V, Radiant Eternatus with some nets, so it might even make it a little better since I could scoop it up as an option.
yeah. But we'll talk about more about that later, I guess. I'm not
Yep.
sure about that one, but yeah, I haven't picked up Mimikyu EX. I just picked up like literally right before this, I picked up the Aurora Energy build for Lugia, that like whole deck, because I said if I'm playing live for like another month or so before rotation, I want to have like what's one of the better decks, if not the best deck, and it's the deck that's just annoying to play against that I keep losing to. And it's the only deck I haven't really played in this current format. Between PTCGL and live, I've been able to get most of the other decks, but picking this one up seems pretty cool. Um, but I guess
Hmm.
so. Our first topic is going to be talking about live. Actually,
Yep.
we've decided to drop the game show because it's bad. Now some of you may be thinking the whole podcast is bad. Um, but let's talk about live. Speaking of bad,
It's not that bad. I know you're a hater. And actually, I will admit, it seems like the game crashes for you very often, and it almost never happens to me. So I think the Pokemon people know you don't like live, and they're punishing you. But anyway, continue.
yeah, I was gonna say it's been like it crashes some for me pretty regularly, probably like once a week. It depends how much I'm playing it, but it certainly crashes quite a bit. Like after the update, it crashed. And they haven't, like, the new update, they finally allowed you to turn off, well, I guess finally is a bit of a stretch, but they allowed you to turn off the animations, which they probably should have done from the start. And when I say the animations they added back in, they extended the
Yeah.
animations, and now they have the option to revert it back to what it used to be, which is kind of strange. Doesn't really show
Hmm.
much progress, unfortunately, but it's something. And then, yeah,
Well,
there
I
haven't
mean,
been great changes, though.
well, they got rid of the two banned cards, right? So as far as
Oh,
I
they
know,
unbanned, yeah.
they unbanned them. So yeah, right. You can play them now, and I guess they work okay. I'm not sure that I've tried them.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, they're showing a very concerning amount of focus to me on the visuals, right? When the game itself needs fixing, right? I mean, the one thing I've noticed since the last change, other people have too. I have the volume on my computer typically, but often I'm not listening to anything, and I have the sound turned down in the game. But when a metal Pokemon switches from bench to active, it still makes sound even though it's all turned off in the game. So I usually the computer is silent. All of a sudden, there's this huge sound like when Mew switches into Genesect in the middle of the turn. It's very disconcerting.
Yeah,
So that
you said that before we started, but wait, well, I just realized, why are they switching their Mew into their Genesect? That doesn't really make any sense.
I don't know honestly, but that's the only time I noticed. That's pretty much the only time it happens. Um, that people there aren't many other metal Pokemon getting played now. We'll talk about one later on, but that one I you don't run into much.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of
I
Zacian because it's like a
yeah.
starter deck and it's all right.
Yeah, can be attacked in different decks too. So depending what you want it to do for draw and stuff. But I'm not sure. I guess like if they have two switch cards and they're just kind of burning cards, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I think also if I boss them up, which certainly I would do that against
Yeah,
Mew, then I think it makes the effect too. Then
yeah,
probably.
it's probably true. And like, I don't think the the changes they're making aren't horrible, but
Hmm.
the bigger issue is the changes they're not making, as in like the game kind of works, but not exactly. And then you like there aren't really many options. Like you can't really play different game modes at all. And
Hmm.
if you want to play against your friends, which is certainly something that's very important for any game, um,
Yep.
you can't play in any format other than standard, which is just weird. Like you should be able to play unlimited probably because or at least expanded because
Expanded,
you want to be
right?
able to like test different things out. Usually I think like you should have the option to do unlimited because if it doesn't work, I mean you're just playing against your friends, right? It's not like you're losing anything. So I feel like having the option at least to play unlimited should be there. I mean you shouldn't if they have cards that they haven't implemented at all, you shouldn't really be able to
Hmm.
play them because who knows what's going to happen. But
Right.
you should be able to at least try out those cards, which you can't try out, which is annoying. And then expanded ladder, have you played that at all?
No, I haven't. Well, in expanded, you're right. You can only do, I think, that in unranked.
Yeah.
I might have done it once or twice just to check it out, but no, I have not. I mean, the idea of expanded with this truncated format, in some sense, is kind of interesting, right? Sun and Moon on. It would be interesting to try out, but the fact you can't do it against friends, you can't do it unranked, but I just think they're having so much trouble just getting standard to work. They just don't want it. It's probably better if they don't work on something like expanded and unlimited at this point.
I guess so. I do think let's just say that I haven't actually played unranked except for maybe like a few games of expanded
Yeah.
because I mean like the ranked isn't even like that good. I mean I consider myself a pretty solid player, but like a lot of my opponents just aren't that solid. Sometimes
Yeah.
I certainly do. I've been moving up a little, so I see that my opponents are able to like, or I'd say like, all right players now, but I don't feel like I mean, I don't know. I haven't played unranked, but I can't imagine it's better than ranked. I mean, there's a bit of toxicity on ranked though. People do like try to stall you out. They concede before you get your
Hmm.
challenges. All that annoying stuff. But I can't imagine it'll be better in unranked.
No, I mean, ranked isn't that difficult. I mean, I guess if you get really high up in the ranked, maybe it becomes that way. I mean, having played like some Magic, when the Magic ranked, if you're not that good or your decks aren't that good, you get to a point in ranked and you're just going to get run over all the time. So then you kind of need to play unranked. But in live, the ranked, the opponents, there's a lot of random decks and random players, even in rank. So there's no reason not to do ranked in live.
Yeah, I mean we haven't tried unranked, but
No, I mean I played it unranked like once or twice when I first got the game when I first downloaded because I figured I would ranked would be too difficult. But after a couple games, I tried ranked and never looked back. So
yeah, and I think most players play ranked. It's kind of like the
yeah,
default way that the game wants you to play. I think.
yeah,
And it doesn't seem like people are too concerned about ranking up or down. I mean, the ranks don't really mean anything at all, which is kind of weird. I guess I don't hate it, but because I think having more incentive to win is generally bad because then people are just gonna push themselves like to win and then just be super toxic all the time, which isn't good. So I think it's fair that the ranks don't mean much, but they're just these like weird currencies, like there are multiple different rank things, and
hmm
it's just kind of a mess.
yeah. You have your rank and then you have your profile, which is some other number that I don't really know what that means at all.
Yeah.
Um, but once obviously Scarlet and Violet's coming. A lot of people are going to switch into live, even if PTCGO sticks around, because they want to play with the new cards. So ranked and people's ranking might become more important. So we'll see if that impacts things, but that's down the road.
Yeah, and I don't know, if there are a lot of new players, which I think would make sense during that
Hmm.
Scarlet and Violet period, I don't think it's going to go. I think the servers are just going to like crash and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, right now the game live is okay for a beta, but it's still very much a beta, which
Hmm.
isn't good that only the new cards are going to be in the beta program. That's a bad decision there, I think. But they haven't ever been good at a new set, so that's going to be a challenge.
And this is the
Obviously,
hardest set, right?
right. It's adding a new mechanic. It's rotation also coming, and I'm not sure the timing exactly, but with rotation, and it's going to get a lot of new players. So probably the players are going to overwhelm the server, and there's probably going to be a lot of glitches, and it could be, it wouldn't be surprised if the game's almost unplayable for a week or two, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And it's all good because it'll all make good content.
Well, that's right. You can just complain about how bad it is also. So at this point, I've migrated. So if the game's unplayable for 2 weeks, I'm playing Magic or doing nothing, I guess. Whereas you can go back to PTCGO with you and like 10 other people probably at that point. But
Yeah, better than nothing, certainly.
yeah, I mean, it's nice having the option. It is nice getting all the cards together. Like what till today you didn't get Lugia because it's expensive to get in PTCGO. You get like most of the Lugia cards in live, but you still need for the Aurora build a bunch of cards to craft. And you weren't doing it enough probably to want to put the outlay, but now you've invested in it.
Yeah.
So all right. So live is okay now. Obviously, the future is concerning, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. And in terms of obviously, I make content, you make some content as well.
Yep.
Um, you can't really good gameplay style content has to be on an online client. Some people have made tabletop gameplay, but it's just much worse to watch. You don't really know what's going on very well. It's you can kind of figure it out, but it's certainly difficult, and it's also much more difficult to produce. So,
Hmm.
like, if you want to make good content and easier to make content, you need a good online client. And certainly Pokemon content compared to YouTube content as a whole is certainly much lower than like most things. So I'd say
Yep.
I think live needs to be good, and live can be good, but right now it hasn't. Like I remember when people were talking about live, there are a few different ideas. One was that it was going to incorporate older formats, which it has literally done the opposite of. But then
Yep.
also one of the ideas was that the live aspect meant that it was going to incorporate live streaming or some other form of content creation, which it has not done. That was a bit of a
No.
stretch, but some people are expecting that it has not done that.
No, I mean initially the thought was I think what new things can they add to PTCGO and Live, and now it's just a matter of what things can they add to get it close to the level of PTCGO. There's a lot of features that I think they should add to be a game of today, but that's a long ways off, unfortunately. And on the thing, I mean, I think we both agree that watching the digital games much better than watching IRL play through a camera. But people like Tricky Jim, Omnipoke are now setting up cameras, so there are those that are going that route that just feel live just isn't good enough. So
Yeah.
it's not a good place that Pokemon's put people in.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to step out of the way and I can take the spotlight, I'm all good with that. But
That's right.
certainly it's their loss, I'd say. Well, no, it's everyone's loss if the a lot of the top content creators are just choosing to like if they're really put in a spot where they can't create good content because of the situation.
Right. I mean, obviously, you can't do a proper deck overview. The deck builder still needs a lot of work and stuff. So, anyway,
Yeah,
um,
I was honestly shocked when I imported my Lugia deck that it actually worked because I remember I went to import some other deck and it just didn't work at all. I don't know what happened, but it didn't import. But the Lugia deck didn't import all the cards right. Certainly that happens with PTCGO as well, but it's easier to fix in
mhm.
PTCGO, so it's kind of annoying. I wish they'd fixed that. It's not the end of the world, but I just hope they clean it up a bunch.
Yeah. I mean, you import a deck, and for some cards like Marnie, it doesn't look like I own Marnie because
Yeah,
it defaults to its one art that I don't own. So it's like, so I gotta go through the hassle of fixing it every time.
yeah.
But
But I think it's time we move on to our next
y-
segment, right?
yes, I think we've talked more than enough about live, and
Uh, and so we're going to
so
talk about Dialga VSTAR, which is well, you've been playing Dialga a little, right, recently?
yeah, I put together the Turbo Dialga, kind of the old build with Mew, and it works pretty well, I think. I recently played that deck with the old, it works pretty well. Obviously, Dialga V-Star attack is what makes it really exciting. Um, I'll call it up here. Sorry, I
Yeah,
wasn't ready
I'll
for
get it. I
that.
got it. Star
So
Chronos.
no, yeah, so Star Chronos does sorry 220. Origin form Dialga V Star 280. Obviously, it's an evolution. Star Chronos 220 for 5 energy, and you take another turn after it, which is tremendous. But obviously, 5 energy is a lot. And the first attack Metal Blast 40 plus 40 more damage per each energy attached to this Pokemon. So especially if you can Star Chronos, you have 5 energy. You do a meaningful amount of damage with Metal Blast after. And so, the idea is 2 turns and you kind of wrapped up the game.
Yeah, and usually you won't necessarily have like one, but you'll be a spot where you'll need to take, say, one more KO, and your opponent won't be
Yep.
able to KO your Dialga back because 280 HP is tanky. It's pretty tanky. It's nothing like insane.
Right.
I think that's
Not
part of
bad.
why it's faded away. Decks like Lugia and also newer builds of Lost Box, or a lot of builds of Lost Box, can definitely one shot this, which is obviously bad. And then you probably just
Yeah.
lose. Also, it's obviously very hard to set up. It plays the Mew engine, the quote unquote turbo build of Dialga, which is very strange. It's not a fast deck. I mean, it's not a super slow deck, but like it
Right.
going fast is attacking turn two, which pretty much every other deck in the game expects to do every game. So
hmm
yeah, I don't know why some people call it Turbo Dialga. I just yeah
Yeah, I don't understand that concept. It's kind of a strange deck because I'll talk about this for a minute. It's a 2/2 Dialga is what people usually play, and that's what I've done. And it takes a lot of energy on the one Dialga, 5 at least. And honestly, you want to get even 6 or 7 when you use the first attack. Like after you've done the V-Star attack, you want to then knock out like a V-Star, which means you need what, like 6 or 7 energy on it. Which so it's and then the problem is after you've done that, if that Dialga is knocked out, you only have 2 main attackers. But honestly, you can't get another Dialga up with enough energy to do meaningful damage. So it's kind of you're almost riding when the deck works one Dialga through the course of the game. Or it plays Zacian, and sometimes I've actually started to use the Zacian more as the first attack. Get 1 or 2 prizes with the Zacian, and then finish the game off with the Dialga. Sometimes, depending how it goes.
yeah. And then also the list I'm looking at here plays one of the Dialgas from Celebrations. Its
Mhm.
first attack allows you to recover cards, and its second attack does damage. It's not great, but it's okay. And I kind of like that in the deck. I don't play this deck a ton. It's not exactly my style deck. It's not that fast and it's not that slow. I usually like very fast or very slow decks, and it doesn't quite do either of those. Um, but I think it's an all right deck. It's not a great deck
Yeah.
though. It's very strange by not having many attackers. And it has it plays differently than most other decks, but it's somewhat straightforward as well.
It is. I with doing the deck, I kind of had to learn early on. My problem early on is I would run out of attack. I couldn't. I'd take 5 prizes, then I get to the point where I can't get enough energy or Pokemon to attack with because you only have 3 Pokemon that can potentially attack in the deck. 2 Dialgas and 1 Zacian with it, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm out of cards here. What do I do?
Yeah, and you often don't choose to attack with the Zacian either, because it's kind of awkward to set up.
Right. But like the hard part is sometimes getting 6 prizes is tough with the deck because, like I said, to get enough energy to use Metal Blast effectively on 2 Dialgas isn't easy because, so you're kind of, it's a tricky deck. I think looking at Limitless, it's winning a little over 40% win rate, both this build and the Lost Zone build, which we'll talk about too. At this, and once rotation hits, certainly the Mew deck I think goes away for sure because that relies on Metal Saucer, and Metal Saucer is obviously very very powerful to get it set up. So without that, I can't see it as really being a viable option.
Yeah, I think Dialga probably won't really be. I mean, a particularly good post rotation unless we see something else. Right? We could. It still
Yeah,
has quite a while left in format. Like is it 2 years? Yeah, I think it has 2 years left in format. So, nothing.
yeah, it's an F mark. So
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, it's not like the most interesting card in the game, but it could become kind of interesting. Um, and so I think it's fair. I think it's a weird card though. It just has such a strange dynamic. Have going all in on this attack that just does
mhm.
weird stuff. But you mentioned the Lost Zone build, and I like this much more. This is the main way to play it now. Is this the main way to play it now?
I mean, I was looking at IRL play, and I think 2 people have played the Lost Zone, and like 5 people have played the Turbo build. So.
Yeah, but
And the win
that's
rates
not
are
that many.
both kind of no, it's not a lot, and the win rates are like in the low 40% for both builds. So it's
Yeah, but
it's your choice which
yeah,
way you want to go
but
with it.
this build I like much more. Instead of Mew and as Comfey, which does dig a bit less into the deck. But then you also, and then of course you play Close Experiment instead of other supporters. But then you
Right.
can use Mirage Gate in addition to Metal Saucer, making it much easier to set up attackers. You also have the addition of the Cramorant and also Radiant Greninja to allow you to
Hmm.
have different attackers and like a more consistent deck in the early game. And I think this build's much stronger because you just have options. And if your Dialga gets KO'd, you don't just lose the game. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely much more of a fan of this build.
I mean, obviously, different attacking options is good. You can, especially since you often with the turbo build, you're not attacking necessarily turn two. We're not attacking meaningfully turn two. So hitting with a Cramorant and then when that gets knocked out, gives up one prize is is better than probably attacking with Dialga on turn two. So having that as an option is good. On the downside, though, you have to play water energy also, or because you need a second energy type, and with water you can attack with Radiant Greninja. So, but you only want metal really on Dialga. So you're kind of weak. You're weakening Dialga's first attack, right, by throwing on water energy. So that's a negative
You
to
don't
me.
have to throw on water energy to Dialga though, and you can split it up between different targets too.
Yeah. The other thing, this is the reason I don't like the build. They probably, well, I've had a hard time getting it set up, but as I'm playing Lost Zone with this deck, I'm thinking like after the first and the middle of the second turn, I wish I had a better attacker than Dialga. Like, why am I doing Lost Zone with Dialga? I could do Lost Zone with a bunch of other cards instead, right?
Well, yeah, but like Dialga's
So
not that good. Like even the
yeah,
Mew build of Dialga isn't that good.
but at least when I'm playing the Mew build, there's not some other attacker I want with the Mew build, right? The Mew build isn't good for that many things right now.
Yeah, I guess so. So you're
Because
making your
Lost
deck
Zone's what
worse to make yourself feel better. That's what you're doing.
exactly. Well, see, because Lost Zone, it's like one of the top two decks in the game right now, right? Except this is
Possibly.
not one. Except this is clearly not one of. This is not the build that fits that, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the Lost Zone build
So
definitely feels better than the Mew build. Like I think it's almost directly better. It's like because Metal Saucer is like a very significant part of the deck, right? It's like
yes.
one of it's Dialga Metal Saucer. This
Hmm.
is essentially gives you twice as many Metal Saucers, except the new Metal Saucers are easier to use. So
Yeah, I mean, having
I don't know.
Mirage
I
Gate's a
think it's
nice
fun.
option. Obviously, you're switching around a lot more because with your comfies. So, but that's what Lost Zone does. So, I mean, have you played Lost Zone Dialga or not really? You
Yeah,
just like the deck a little more.
I played the Lost Zone Dialga some. Let's see,
All
what's my
right.
win rate on PCGO? It's 50%. I mean, it's hard to tell the win rates on
Okay.
PCGO, and then my regular one. It's actually about. I haven't played either of them very much, but
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely think this deck it makes more sense. The Lost Zone build. I think the other build of Dialga doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I'm a fan of Lost Zone definitely as well. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, Lost Zone is very good, obviously. But at least with PTGO, you can check your win rate here in live. I don't think you can find out your win rate with the decks because, that's too much for them still at this point.
yeah,
Um, obviously it's reasonably effective, the podcast and Dialga. I mean, yeah, and
what
Dialga is what's that?
what do you like saying?
I don't know. Well, Dialga is a reasonably effective card, right? It's
Yeah,
not overly effective, so I think it fits in there. And honestly, I think if Dialga was too much better, though, it could be overpowered, right? Because that Star Chronos attacking twice is huge, right? So if it was a little bit easier to set up, it probably would be too good, and it wouldn't be good if Dialga just runs the game, right?
yeah, definitely. It's a bit of an annoying card. It's kind of weird. Like pretty much, I don't know. Both players kind of play separate games, which isn't really great. Um,
Yeah,
you just kind of do stuff. It's not horrible, but I don't know. I
yeah,
know
that. Mhm.
it's weird.
Yeah, it's not a lot of interaction with your opponent. It is kind of a solitaire deck in that regard. So
Yeah,
it's not, yeah, which isn't makes doesn't make for great gameplay, but there's certainly a place for solitaire decks in the game as an option. It's good to give
yeah.
that as a choice. So
Like control, where your opponent doesn't do anything.
exactly.
Yeah,
So anything's better than control, including Dialga.
yeah. But then I have one more build here. You don't have any more
Okay.
builds, do you?
No.
Actually, wait. I have two more builds, but
Well,
the
I'll
one
just say
build's Metacham.
okay. Well, just on the one Mew build is to put in. the um the cards that work with Bird Keeper because you are switching a lot, which you can have Rowlet, which does 60, which especially can be good if early on, like turn two, you're attacking the first attack on the V Star, you might not knock something out. So you put 60 on one of the bench, so you might be able to finish something off if they've retreated. And then you can even potentially play Starly, where you search for two cards. So kind of just to help yourself set up early on has some value. So that's an option in the deck too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. And I'm not a big fan of Avery. I don't think it's a very good card. I think Birdkeeper is probably better. But so I have two other builds. As I said the
Yeah.
one's a Medicham build. I haven't even gotten the pieces. I don't think it's good. But the idea is you can't. Oh, actually, I was gonna say you can't do multiple Dialga V-Star powers in a row, obviously because it's a V-Star power. But you can't do
Right.
Medicham V 2 turns in a row. But you can do, I
Hmm.
believe, Medicham V and then go in with Dialga, and then Medcham V again. So you can actually take 4 turns in a row, which is kind of interesting. But I don't.
So you attack with Medicham, which you obviously have to have him set up for the knockout.
Yeah,
Then you'd use the V Star power attack. Then you'd use Medicham V. Then you use like Dialga's first attack, probably.
yeah, something like that. Which is a funny idea. I've never seen anyone do it. Um, it's like pretty much impossible to set up, but it's funny. You're gonna like win if you do that. Probably there's still a chance you'd lose anyway. But yeah, that's an idea.
Yeah, I mean it's a content creator's video where your friends are letting you set yourself up probably. I mean I can't imagine how many games you'd have to actually play to just make it happen on the ladder.
Yeah, yeah, probably. But then the other build that I actually think is all right. Do I have a win rate? It's probably. Oh, it is 1 for 1. Wow. Um,
100%.
yeah. Oh yeah, I remember this deck. So this. Let's play your favorite Pokemon, Blissey.
With Blissey, huh?
Yeah,
Blissey V, huh?
yeah, because you were mentioning Thornton, right? Could be okay in this
Oh
deck.
yeah, right. Yeah, because right. Which and I'll say my idea there, and you told me it was bad, and I tried it, and it was bad. But Zacian, it's easy to get energy on Zacian, especially on your first turn. You attach, and then you hopefully you can often accelerate one with the Intrepid Sword ability, and then Thornton lets you switch from the discard in, so it's a way to get a Dialga up to the V Star on the second turn with more energy.
Yeah,
So
but
now
you're
you,
not
you
super likely to hit it with Zacian, so I feel like Thornton doesn't have a ton of value there.
so you want to apply that to Blissey, huh?
Yeah, I was thinking what's better than Zacian? It's Blissey. So you play Blissey V. You go ahead and you use your Blissful Blast attack, which accelerates a bunch of energy to Blissey. It does damage and
Yep.
has a bunch of HP. I guess the HP doesn't matter. The fact that it does more than Dialga, but because Dialga V has an attack that accelerates to itself, but it doesn't do any damage and it doesn't accelerate as much as Blissey. Um,
Right.
Also, Blissey V in its own right is a solid attacker, but you can
Yep.
Thornton the Blissey V into the origin form Dialga V, evolve it into the V Star, and then all of a sudden you can literally Blissey V attach, accelerate 3. Next turn, Thornton attach, and you got your V Star power set up. So it's not super easy, but in
Yeah.
the late game, in this list I'm running, plays 1 Lumineon and 3 Thorntons, so it's not that hard to get, especially during the mid to late game, and it's much easier to set up because it's not as complicated of a combo. In
Hmm.
the meantime, you're not really doing much of anything, but that's an interesting idea. And then I also play the Mimikyu V Thornton package, which is very strong. Some people don't think like Mimikyu V Thornton with Arceus was an interesting deck. Actually, one of my most viewed videos. Pretty much completely outclassed by Lugia now. But Mimikyu V being invincible the turn you play it, you can Thornton into the Blissey. So you actually have an invincible Blissey with 4 energy on it.
Hmm.
The next turn you attach to Blissey, Thornton into Dialga V Star. So that's kind of the idea there.
So because Mimikyu V is immune to damage the turn you play it, right?
Yeah,
So you play Mimikyu, you Thornton
into Blissey.
into Blissey the turn you play down the Mimikyu, right?
Yeah, and then you
So
accelerate energy to Blissey.
right, and then you have to get it into the active, right? Because
Yeah,
Mimikyu obviously plays it to the bench, so you need to switch into the active, attack with the Blissey, which had to be in the discard, Thornton in hand. You need to have 3 energies in the discard to make it all pay off. I'm just trying to think
yeah.
through the
No, and then
pieces
and then
here.
next turn you Thornton again, the
You,
Blissey into the Dialga, and then
right,
you evolve and attach.
which means you need to have another Thornton in your hand the next turn, and be your Dialga in the discard. Yeah, okay. It's a lot. So it's a lot of things to make happen.
Yeah, but if you get that set up, you're gonna win probably because you got an
Yes.
invincible Pokemon in the active, which actually stays invincible even if they gust. If they like rope boss, it's still invincible because it's an effect of an ability, not an attack. Um, and then so you
Wait,
can
so it immune the next turn? Is that what it does?
let's see, I have it here. For
Until the
like
end of your opponent's next turn.
yeah,
So therefore, okay. So because when I get in, wait. So I'm going from Blissey directly to Dialga. Is that correct?
the second turn, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not immune that turn, but I have back-to-back turns with Dialga, so
Well,
I
yeah,
should be
it's immune the turn that you used. It's immune. The Dialga's never immune, but
right. The
when you get
Blissey
the
is.
Dialga up, it'll be the V Star, and you can use the V Star power.
Right, right. And they can't damage my Blissey.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something anyway. That is more high roll than just about any of the other builds we've talked
No,
about.
no,
But
fine, fine. You really want me to bring out the last build? I'll get it. I'll get it.
you got
It's
something more
well,
high
it's the
roll,
the
huh?
meta champ, right? I haven't played it.
No, that's true. That well, I'm not. I discount that. That's
Yeah,
that's just a fun idea, which is what it is a fun idea, but I don't see that as
yeah.
workable at
You can
all. I
power
would
it up
say.
with Blastoise from Pokemon Go. And you have Medicham, and it plays 26 Pokemon, and it only runs a 2/2 Dialga and one Medicham and 8 energy.
So it works smoothly. That
Yeah,
sounds
no,
like
I
from
don't
that
have
description.
all the cards.
Okay.
But yeah, we were speaking of Mimikyu. I think it's time we moved on, right?
Right to the very first of the EXs, which I have been playing this week.
So
So
yeah, you got Mimikyu EX dropped in. What was it? Was it a tin? Was it a
live,
box?
I think it was a box, which is an IRL product, but then in live, the store in live that you can buy the products in live, which actually is a nice thing with live. We didn't mention that before. The fact in PTCGO you couldn't buy the products like things like the say the Ice Rider the league battle deck you couldn't buy. You can buy those things in live, which is a plus. So therefore, there's a Mimikyu EX box, which has the Mimikyu EX. So the first EX, which dropped this week, another Psychic Pokemon with it that it's not particularly good, and then I think 4 Crown Zenith packs. So within the economy, it gives you access to these cards a little easier, I think.
Yeah, I think
So
that's cool. Although there are really you can just get it other ways. You can just craft it. So
you
pretty much it's
can,
spreading out. Like P2G only has one currency. No, that's not true. It has packs, which are a currency. But I think
right.
the live economy can get a bit complicated. But yeah, Mimikyu EX. Tell us what that does because I don't have live up and I don't know what it does. Or I kind
All
of
right,
do.
so let me call up. Right, so Mimikyu EX, the first EX available. It's got 190 HP. It's a basic, so easy to get into play. Gives up 2 prizes, as all the EXs do. This is lowercase EX. And 2 attacks. Void Return for 1 psychic does 30 damage, and you can switch it with one of your bench Pokemon. You don't have to, though. And then the main attack is Energy Burst for 3 energy, 1 psychic, and 2 colorless. It does 30 damage per energy attached to both active Pokemon. So it's not great, but up against an opponent with a lot of energy, which some of the like Lugia builds will do that, you can do some big damage.
Yeah. So I mean that's not that good though, right? It's.
It's not that good. I mean, I wanted to play with it, so I put it in the Shadow Rider because obviously Shadow Rider lets you accelerate to it to set it up on the turn you want. You can scoop up net it, right? That's one unlike the V's, which you can't. The EX can at least. So I'm not sure how long when rotation happens. Obviously, nets are going to rotate, but right now you can scoop up the EXs. So it's this is certainly an underwhelming EX, but there's certainly better ones coming soon, I think.
Yeah, and I want to actually correct one thing you said. You said this was the
Yeah.
first EX. So EXs are kind of weird in Pokemon TCG. There were actually EXs a long time ago. I don't know when this was. This was before. I don't know. It was a long time ago. Um,
Yeah.
with
All right.
the quote unquote EX era, which is kind of silly now because they're all like there are a bunch of different cards called EXs, but
Yeah.
they were like well they're not necessarily evolutions, but if it would normally be a stage 2, it's still a stage 2. If it would normally be a basic, it's still a basic.
Hmm.
And so they can evolve. They give up 2 prizes, pretty straightforward. And that's the new ones, and then the the old ones that are also the new ones. Then there are
Hmm.
the middle ones, which are sometimes called the new EXs, but now they're gonna start being called the old EXs, with that are capital EXs,
Right.
that are all basic. So even if the Pokemon would be a stage 2, like say Charizard, it would be a basic Charizard EX, which gives up 2 prizes. And then there are some spin-offs of at least the capital new or old EXs, called
Uh,
Mega EXs and stuff.
So let me ask you a question just to try to clarify, simplify things a little bit. In terms of playing with PTCGO, the old lowercase ex's, they were not part of that game. Is that correct?
No, no, they're much older than that.
Not even they're pre-legacy. And the capital ex's, are they in expanded
Yeah, they're in expanded and legacy.
and legacy?
They first came out in black and white, and
Okay.
they actually extended they were in both black and white and um X and Y, which is unique. Generally, it's only for one like generation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why Pokemon went back, reused the same name for a third time. Obviously, they just seem to not care in that regard about keeping things straight. I mean, I guess the old lowercase are old enough, but if you're playing expanded and you have EXs, you're talking about potentially two different types of cards, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and
But
I saw, I don't know what YouTube channel this was, but they're talking about EXs. And their thumbnail, it has like a big, like a tall lowercase e or something, in their title.
okay,
So I don't really know what's going on with them anymore. But I believe they are the same as the old EXs, like the old EXs,
the
lowercase
way they
EXs.
work is the same. They evolve from like if it's a stage one or stage two, it evolves from the single prize Pokemon with those names from it.
Yeah, yeah, which is also how how GXs work. But then V's worked kind of like the capital EXs,
Right. Yeah. So
the middle EXs.
yeah, it's yeah. Whatever. I mean, in standard, we'll have V's, V stars, and EXs, and so that's what we're gonna be
I
dealing
mean,
with,
yeah, there are
right?
something. Well, what do you say? V's, V stars, and EXs.
Yeah. So we'll have
I
V's
mean,
and
there's more
EXs
than that. Yeah,
overlapping.
but then there's a few things. There's V's, which also have V stars, V unions, and V maxes. There
Yeah.
are still going to be radiant Pokemon, which are a unique mechanic.
Right.
EXs, and then also um, Terrestrial EXs, which are a variant, very underwhelming,
Right.
right? Which
What does the Trastal or Trastalization? It's a like a Poke Power, but it's not actually a Poke Power, right?
what do you
It's
mean
not an
Poke
ability.
Power? Like an
Well,
ability?
what are
It's
they?
not an ability.
It's an ability, but it's not an ability,
It's a
right?
thing. It's kind of like an ancient trait if you're familiar with those, like
Oh yeah.
Omega Barrier and something else. I don't know. So it won't be turned off by ability lock, but pretty much it says so far we've seen, I believe two. I believe Dedenne and Gyarados. Wait, is Arcanine? Oh yeah, so Dedenne isn't coming out yet, but I believe it's Arcanine,
Arcanine EX. Yeah, I have the page here
and
with
then
it. So
there's
it's Terastal, and it says this Pokemon doesn't take any damage from attacks while on the bench.
yeah,
And
and
since
is
it's not the,
Gyarados also? Gyarados is also Terrestrial, right?
I would have to find that. Um,
I don't know if that's coming out in the next. I think it
I
is.
don't
It's
remember.
really bad.
Or it might not have made this list too. This is the more prominent ones, so I don't see it. But it's not an ability, so things that shut off abilities don't affect it. So like wheezing doesn't turn it off.
Which will be
Now
rotating,
that's true. Now path
and
to the
can't do
T.
bench damage. And you can't do bench damage.
Yeah,
So it doesn't really matter at all.
it
But
doesn't it doesn't seem very impactful. Correct. Now, but there's this assumption that other terrestrial quote abilities I guess are going to be different, right? And maybe more useful, but time will tell
yeah,
with
and the
that.
big thing about terrestrial Pokemon is in the video games, they're meant to change your type or boost effects, but primarily they're thought of as a way to change your Pokemon's type. There is the
Yeah.
mechanic Delta species. I don't know if that was at the same time as EXs. That was certainly like quite a while before I started playing. But it could be something like that. It could be. I mean, we've seen various ways of changing types, but the Terrestrial mechanic so far has not shown any signs of that. So hopefully we see some form of type change or different effects or just something unique. Stopping bench damage, this is nothing unique at all. And
Yeah.
so I guess they're easing us into it, or maybe they're just really lazy. I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, it doesn't do much. So hopefully it gives them something to work with, I guess. Now, if an EX has an ability, does Path to the Peak shut it off? I'm trying to remember how
Yes,
that's
yes. Path to
phrased.
the Peak is something that stops rulebox
Okay.
Pokemon. So yeah,
And
the
obviously
EXs are rulebox.
they are.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And then some of the EXs do have abilities also, certainly.
Yeah, like the Miraidon and Koraidon. The what are they? Are they dragons? I don't know. Transformer bikes, something like that. But so I think so. What are your thoughts on like the mechanic as a whole, though?
I mean, I think it's a good idea that this idea that compared to the V's that we've had, the V Star or the V Max evolves only from a V, so multi-prizer from multi-prizer, going back to the idea of a multi-prizer evolving from a single prizer, I think is more interesting. So therefore, you don't have that liability when it's sitting there. It's only given one prize. At the same time, the single prizer HP isn't as much, so it's easier if you're worried about it in your opponent to get it knocked out too. So I think it could make for interesting gameplay.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of like the evolution Pokemon not being multi prizers because
Hmm.
generally it's always good to target their setup. Um, so if they're worth just as many prizes as their main attacker, there's no reason not to go for them. Um, but then if they're worth less prize, you need to decide: do you want to target them to weaken their board state, or do you want to go
Hmm.
ahead and prizes more, or just maintain a better prize position? And I think that's really interesting compared to just always having a more obvious solution. I think it opens up more routes, and also like you can evolve, or you can also there's some incentive not to evolve at some points as well. Right now
Yep.
you're always going to evolve a V into a V star unless some absurd scenario that I can't think of. Maybe with Arceus, its first attack's cheaper, but really you always want to evolve. But
Right.
then sometimes you won't evolve a VMAX. I play a lot of Flying Pikachu because that's
Hmm.
the only deck on live pretty much that's easily accessible. As I said, I just crafted Lugia, but before I was playing Flying Pikachu Arceus, and you wouldn't always evolve your Flying Pikachu
Hmm.
because you want to not have that Pokemon available to give up three prizes. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a really interesting dynamic that comes into effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think it will open up the potential at least for rare candy decks, which is always fun. It's always fun to try and pull those off. They usually don't succeed well, but at least now there's a bigger payoff because if it goes into an EX, then you can rare candy from the basic into the stage two.
Yeah, I mean, rare
Uh,
candy decks have been okay, notably with GXs that aren't like very big,
mhm.
because it's just if you have this high payoff. Because right now in current standard, you don't you evolve into a stage two, and you have less
Yeah.
payoff than if you had gone to a V Max or V Star, which is a stage one. So it's just like I spent more work and got less payoff. Sure, I don't give up as many prizes, but it's so much more difficult to work with. So I feel like
Mhm.
I think the EXs like what are the HPs are up as big as like I don't remember if it's yeah I think
Some of them are pretty
340.
big.
Generally like I think basic EXs are around the same HP line as Vs, which makes a lot of sense because they're essentially the same. Stage ones are equivalent to V stars, which is, and I see the stage one. I mean, they're kind of similar, so
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense. And then the stage twos
Hmm.
are big as V maxes, which are these three prize Pokemon or V unions, which is pretty insane. And I think that's going to
Hmm.
become viable. I don't think they'll be overpowered though. I think it's I don't know. I wouldn't hate to see them strong though.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's only giving up two prizes with a big HP, hopefully, is an equal payoff to the work it takes to get to stage two. I don't want to see the game where only stage two EXs are the decks that you have to play. So hopefully, we don't end up there. I don't think we will because stage twos are like, they're difficult. Um, but it's nice having as a viable option, like which in like you said in the past year, Sword and Shield, that whole block. Um, the stage twos weren't good enough, right? You didn't get a knockout on a big Pokemon after doing the rare candies and all the pieces, so therefore you kind of wasted your time and you didn't
Yeah,
get the
we've only
payoff.
seen a few. Realistically, through the whole Sword and Shield block, there have been a few viable stage twos. We've seen Inteleon engine, which is amazing, but it's an engine with its stage one being amazing. And then we've seen
Right.
Archeops, right, which is that's not really a stage two.
Right. Right. Neither of those are you jumping up to the stage two. I mean, occasionally there were times that you might rare candy to the Inteleon to draw two, or to say Raihan for your attack, a surprise. But that was the exception. Generally, you wanted to go Drizzile to Inteleon, and obviously Archeops, you're getting into play from Lugia.
Yeah, but then there's also stuff like Decidueye and Obstagoon
Hmm.
are also stage twos that were viable, but they were
Yeah.
like invincible essentially once you set them up, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. Right. Certainly, they had Decidueye certainly had his day for sure. Um, and it kind of, because it was invincible, made enough of a payoff that it could work.
Yeah, it's like you get into the stage two, you win. It's not like
Right.
most other stage twos are you involve into the stage two, you lose. So this doesn't really feel that
Right.
good.
I mean, the stage two that people that probably saw the most play was the Charizard for the theme deck because that was very accessible and it wasn't the worst deck ever, but you did all the work and then you're not taking the prizes you need off your Charizard.
Yeah, I
Uh,
imagine there's probably some other stage twos that I've seen play that we're forgetting about, but nothing that
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't a big part of the meta for sure. And then the other thing, which I'm sure you're going to be interested in, is you can use Zoroark to get a stage one EX into play. So which is obviously something that you couldn't do with the V Max or the V Stars. That whole mechanic didn't work with Zoroark. So now we have a new opportunity for Zoroark to shine, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be like super interesting. Debatably overpowered. I think Zorak's one of the cards I've been most excited for ever. It's very reminiscent of stuff like Mewtwo and Mew, and I don't know. Mewtwo and Mew's the only one that I played like that, but
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
similar to that. And so I think that's really neat being able to like have these toolbox style decks. And now you have these really good attackers. Right now, the Zorak style decks are just, and I'm gonna make a video on this. I promise. I put up a poll and I was like, what do you want to see? And everyone's like Zorak, and I was like, here's not Zorak, but I got the video coming up. Um,
Hmm.
but Zorak right now just plays like a counter box, which isn't bad. It's still a cool deck. You need to maneuver the matchups in a moderately interesting way, but really you just like pick up the counter, do whatever does the most damage, do whatever is best. It's usually very straightforward.
Hmm.
I think it's much more interesting if we have actually good attackers. And you said you pulled up some on your page, right? Which no one can see, and it's a podcast anyway. But
Correct. So let me see. I've actually been looking at some of the uh, stage twos also, but let's see here. So the stage one EXs. I'm looking.
yeah, so I
Let's
think the
see.
first, I think the best one. I think there are two very strong ones, maybe three, but I think I'm really looking at Bayonet EX, which is a psychic EX. And it does, I believe it does 30 for one psychic on the stage one, and then does item lock.
Yeah, yeah. That yeah. There's a couple good psychic in the. Well, this is the stage one. Bayonet EX does 30. Well, just does 30
30
damage.
item lock.
30 damage in the item lock. So that's the first attack. So
Yeah,
that's obvious.
what's the second attack? I don't remember that one.
And then Poltergeist for
Uh,
2 energy. Look at your opponent's hand. Does 60 damage for each trainer in their hand. So it pairs well together. Obviously, Zoroark can be a controlish style deck. So this, I think, can pair in very well with that and be kind of fun to
yeah,
play.
I think it's really interesting. Some people have said it should be in Gardevoir EX, which we'll talk about. Um, but I don't think that really makes
Mhm.
a lot of sense. They don't actually have any synergy together. But your Bayonet EX in a pseudo control style list, it's very similar to Vikavolt, very similar to Seismitoad. It's just stage
Right.
one, and some people are saying that makes it much worse, which it does. But a turn two item lock is still pretty good, especially when you have the option of cards like Cheryl. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, that's about it. But and then there are also ways of trapping your opponent. So one of the other Pokemon EX, like Spidops EX, I think it's a Grass EX Stage One,
Oh, yep.
uh,
I see that here.
pairs very nicely with it. It's very similar to Leafeon V Max with its attack doing more for each retreat cost of your opponent's active Pokemon, except it's much weaker. But its ability here says it increases your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost by one. And that's
Yeah.
obviously very powerful. You can get both of those with Zoroark. So you can have a pseudo-controlled Zoroark style list. You guess your opponent's Pokemon up and item lock them, and then hopefully you'll
Hmm.
KO it. Or you could go try to not KO it, but I say you probably try to KO it. They'll eventually get out. Then you'll just win the game through that. And then you could also attack with Spite Ops if you want. It's not a horrible attacker. And I'd love to
Hmm.
see Aurora Energy style boxes with this. Keep in mind we are losing Aurora Energy,
Yeah,
but
it's going to make it tough,
yeah, but
difficult.
there's a new energy. I don't.
Okay.
It's like
With the
Luminous,
next set, or
not Scarlet and Violet, but the set after
okay.
that, presumably, or is it confirmed? I'm not sure if it's confirmed or not, but it's similar, and in this
Hmm.
style of deck, it should work well enough.
Okay. And with Spite Ops, it can, the ability I assume can stack. So if you get multiple ones
Yes.
in play, if you especially you really want to get your opponent stuck in the active, you can get multiples of
Yeah.
those if
How
that's your.
much damage does it do? Again, I don't
It
remember.
does 90 plus 30 more for retreat cost.
Yeah, and so that's not a ton of damage. Even if you have four Spite Ops
No,
in play, that's not that much. If you had Galar Mine, it might be good enough, but you don't. So
that's rotating. Right. So I think it's more of a control thing than to get something stuck for your opponent rather than using the attack, I suspect.
yeah, but I think it's very strong. Because well, okay, so I was gonna say it can't be bumped like Galar Mine, which is kind of true, except it's not entirely true because you could turn it off with Path,
Right.
reducing your retreat cost back down again. But I think it's still pretty strong.
No, it's yeah, no, it certainly is strong. So that's a strong option for Zorak. And then you mentioned the Arcanine EX also.
No, but I was gonna go there. You're
Okay,
stealing all my
I'm
stuff.
sorry. It's next to it on the page I'm looking at. So, and obviously we can't call it up in live or PTCGO because it's not there at this point. But in this one is a terrestrial, so I guess this was another one, which again I forgot. It doesn't take damage while it's on the bench, which doesn't get you too excited, right? But then Raging Claw, 30 plus damage, does 10 more for each damage counter on this Pokemon. It's a fire, so you can use Magna Basin. I would guess you'd think about that.
Yeah, you're
And
spoiling my Zohark video.
well, so you didn't want to talk about
No,
this
it's
now?
fine. No, no, let's do it. Let's do it.
So, and then the other attack does 250 for 3 fire energy. So, and then you discard 2. So, um, obviously a bunch of damage. Obviously, you have a hard time attacking again, but maybe it's getting knocked out for you on you,
Yeah, and someone
or or,
said,
or you're knit scooping it up maybe.
well, for now,
Oh, that's true. That's going away. So,
yeah.
yeah.
But someone said about this card, it's very similar to, um, an interesting card, a very powerful card that actually won the world championship, Reshiram and Charizard,
Hmm.
which it kind of is, right? Um,
Hmm.
but it's like at stage one, and you don't have Welder, so it's significantly worse in that aspect. Um, right, but you played that a lot, of
Yeah.
course. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So, is it going to be good enough? I'm not sure. So that's a question.
yeah, but I don't think that's something too many people are looking at. As I said, stay tuned for my Zoroark video. I'm gonna suppose that's gonna be the
You'll
main
crack it with that.
that's probably the main deck I'll talk about in that video. But then and I have some spicy stuff. Actually, it's not that spicy, but
Or
and
maybe I
then
can make my Entei deck work too, because there is maybe you throw it in, but there's the Armor Rouge, right, that can move energy around. So
yeah, I
we'll have
think
to think about that.
yeah, I
But
don't know about Armrouge and Entei, but I think Armrouge is powerful with Hisuian Arcanine and some other things as well.
mm,
But I don't think Hisuian Arcanine's sorry, not Hisuian Arcanine, just Arcanine
no,
EX. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I think it has solid potential. Water is also very good right now, but it's losing tools, so that's good for fire.
hmm,
But then we're also gonna see the really powerful one. I think. Well, okay, so there are a few ones that we haven't talked about yet, but Gardvor
hmm.
EX, that's like the big one.
That is the big one. I mean, there is the one that, yeah. I mean, big damage is Miraidon EX, just can do 220 for 3
Yeah, we'll
energy.
we'll get to
So,
this. We'll get to this.
oh, you're getting there because to
Stop
me,
jumping ahead.
Gardevoir, I thought that was the showstopper. No, okay,
Yeah, well, it is, but people are gonna click off. I mean, they've already clicked off,
all
but
right, go,
you
go
know.
ahead.
So Gardvor accelerates, as I said. Wait, can you read it off? I don't have it in front of me. You have
Yeah,
the
so and
translation.
this is the one I'm excited about too. So it's got an ability, Psychic Embrace. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic psychic energy from your discard pile to one of your psychic Pokemon. So Mimikyu EX making it shine. I know that's why you're excited about it. Um, and so if you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. And you can't use it to knock yourself out though. That it also gives that in parentheses.
Yeah,
So
but
which obviously for some control players might like that, but you can't do that. And then the attack, it does 190 for 3 energy too, which are psychic, miraculous force, 190 damage, and this Pokemon recovers from all special conditions.
yeah. So when you're paralyzed, this is the perfect attack to use.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that little
Yeah, it's
ad
not.
is
It's like
isn't great.
it's literally it's so useless because if you're paralyzed or asleep, you can't like use it, and if you're confused, you might not be able to use it. And if you're burned burned, you might not be burned anymore, or you've already taken damage. And same thing with poison. It's very. I guess it's good against it's like spicy something curry. I don't know. There's some card like that like burns you, but
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it doesn't add much value.
yeah. But then, yeah, I'm very excited for Gardevoir. I think it'll be cool. I think I've looked at some lists. It's interesting. It's certainly just a different style of deck. It's nothing crazy, but it obviously relies heavily on the curl. Well, I don't know if I say it relies heavily on, but it gains a lot from the Curlia engine or slash Gardevoir slash Gallade engine, allowing you to
Mhm.
have more access to discard, draw, search. It's just a very strong engine. Debatably the best engine in the game right now. Probably most people wouldn't say that, but I say it's in contention certainly. In post rotation, I think it's probably the best engine.
Yeah, I mean, starting at the beginning, that seems like the best option. And I've been playing some Shadow Rider, and this with Shadow Rider, you can get energies from the discard back and really power up Shadow Rider, which in some ways might be a better attacker than Gardevoir. Use Gardevoir to set up Shadow Riders.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. That's a lot of deck space. I feel like you just generally want a few basic psychic attackers,
Hmm.
as well as I don't know. People have been playing it with the Psychic Zacian V. So when everyone thought Zacian V was bad, was rotating, no, it's back. It's still very strong. So I think that's interesting. Um, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one. I think it'll be interesting. It's not crazy interesting, but it's cool. Similar to Gardevoir GX as well, I guess. But I'd say it's weak. It's stronger. Um, Gardevoir, what's it? Gardevoir EX. This new one is stronger than
Yeah.
Gardevoir GX, especially being on a much better typing.
Yeah, I mean that's that. Yeah, that is good. It's weak to dark, so that's probably not a bad thing to be.
I don't know.
Doing
It's
one.
not great, especially with Drapion, but
Yeah, that's true. So,
yeah,
and Mew's not going to go away, so Drapian's not going
yeah.
away.
Can you accelerate to any Pokemon, or just Psychic Pokemon?
Um, only to Psychic.
Okay, so that's limiting some, but
Yeah,
no Blissey Gardevoir, unfortunately.
I'm
You
sure you would have loved that.
Yeah, no, I could see you do it, and then your Blissey gets KO'd, and then so you got like a ton of energy on your Blissey, and then it gets KO'd, and then you accelerate 10 energy back to the Blissey, and one shot your opponent's Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the attack itself was at 190, you really do. I think you want to be powering up some other attacker than your Gardevoir. I would think.
Yeah, there are some other ones. I don't remember what the main one. I think their main one might be Zacian V. I think it's no, it's probably I don't remember what it is. You can do the other Gardevoir, the Gallade though. They're not bad attackers either. So,
Hmm.
but then yeah, the other two, the Transformers, Rhydon and Koraidon, literally they're just like Zacian V again. They like literally completely ran out of ideas, but that's fine. They have some different aspects. Like the fighting one, I believe, has an ability that accelerates energy and ends your. Oh wait, never mind. The the lightning one has an ability
Okay.
that searches for Pokemon, which is a bit more unique
Yes.
there. It is actually very strong. People are thinking it's going to be very good or pretty good. I got kicked out of PTCGO, classic.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, people think that's going to be pretty solid. I guess.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's kind of cool.
searches for 2 basic lightning Pokemon put them on your bench, and you shuffle, but your turn doesn't end. So, right. So therefore, it has a place if you're going for a lightning deck.
Yeah, I think it's solid. And then you can
And
also
it,
pair it with Regieleki VMAX is probably the logical partner where you just hit even harder. And then you can accelerate with there's a new item card that's inconsistent, but it's very powerful. That's Power Ceiling.
well, the attack on this for is 220,
Yeah, 220 you
which
can't
is
attack next turn.
right. That's a problem.
Well, it's
Retreat
just
cost is
Zacian. It's
one.
just Zacian, pretty much.
Yeah, but retreat cost of one. So I don't know. Flappy's not rotating, correct?
Well, no, but it's flapping.
So I know, but everybody tries. But you accelerate the the basics down, and then you for retreat cost of one. See, Zacian's what is Zacian two retreat
Yeah,
cost?
it's a
I
little
think.
different, but
So one retreat cost helps a lot. You can retreat it much easier if you want to if you can switch between things. It's more viable that regard. So
yeah.
I but and then there's the fighting one also, right? That you started to mention.
Yeah, which is not as different from Zacian. It has a very similar ability. It still has fighting energy. It's more
Right.
consistent. I don't. Is it to any Pokemon?
Well, in this one,
It like ends your
it,
turn.
it,
It like
it
from the discard.
they're from the discard, right? And it ends your turn only to your fighting Pokemon,
Okay, but two fighting energy.
right? And then again, the attack does 220 for 3 energy, and it can't attack next turn. But this one does have a retreat cost of 2, so that makes it harder. And we are losing Air Balloon, correct?
Yeah, we're losing that. So I think
So
it's still like it's all right. I don't think it has a lot of great cards that are gonna work with it super well either. So
yeah, I mean to set up something, I guess. I mean, if
yeah,
especially if you're going first and you can accelerate 2 energy
yeah, but that's a
and end your
lot to do.
turn, that is quite. What's that?
That's awkward to do though.
In what way?
Well, getting two fighting energy in the discard, in addition to probably
Yeah,
one to attach, as well as two fighting Pokemon like in play.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, probably the Lightning one, the Miraidon seems a little more viable, I would think, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I'd say I'm most looking forward. I'm probably most looking forward to Spite Ops. So to stop my opponents from playing, um, possibly with some good old Palkia from Celebrations. And then yeah, I'm just interested in seeing what people are gonna come up with. Though I'm very excited for Zoroark, and I'm just excited
Mhm.
for the EXs. I think they're pretty well designed. I hope the Traslo mechanic will be implemented in an interesting way, though.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the Gardevoir certainly seems intriguing, and the Bayonet doing item lock is it's always fun to do to your opponent. So
Yes.
it's not fun to play against, but therefore it makes it all the more fun to do. And I found with when the V Pokemon first came out, and you still had the GXs, it was a fun time between the two. So I'm looking forward to having the EXs and the Vs, V Maxes, V Stars mixed together. It gives a lot of options for decks, which I think is fun.
Yeah. All we need now is a Pokemon that takes extra prizes, and we're all set.
Yeah, and a client that works, but that's to be determined.
Yep. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. So wait,
Yeah.
what's your favorite Pokemon from the new set? What do you favorite EX?
Uh, Bayonet, I think.
Maynet? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just gonna ruin everybody's day for him.
Yep. Okay. I guess we won't be playing against each other too much.
No, I won't be getting many friends to play against me in the
Yeah.
game for
But
sure.
when you're playing item lock, I'm playing control. The video like lasts 10 days.
Yeah, it's the unending game, so no one will enjoy it, not even us. So
Yep.
okay,
But we hope you've been enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully, we'll put it on another podcast platform. Who knows? That's not my job. That's your job. All right.
I will. Yeah, I have done a little looking, but not as much as I need to, and it is not quite as simple as I would have hoped. I gotta say.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, but we hope you enjoyed, and we're excited to see you next time. I've been 10 types.
And I'm Uncommon Fossil.
Like,
And
comment,
take care.
yeah, yep, yep,
Yeah, go
yep,
ahead.
yep. Yep, comment, subscribe, hit the bell as always.
Yeah, take care.